It started with 3 gunshots that no one in Terminal 4 could explain. Glass shattering, screams splitting the air, a black woman collapsing in a pool of her own blood. Then she stood up, bleeding, unarmed, and calm as judgment itself. "You just shot a federal judge," she said. And from that moment on, the whole country learned that the courtroom doesn't always wait for the gavel. It can erupt right in the middle of an airport. But what happened next wasn't chaos. It was revelation. Because that judge, Naomi Carter, wasn't just another passenger. She was about to turn the very place she was shot into a courtroom. And every camera, every bystander, every trembling officer was about to become a witness in a case that would shake the entire system. The sound came first, 3 quick cracks that didn't belong in an airport. Travelers screamed, bags dropped, and the smell of cordite bit the air. A security checkpoint that had been humming with small talk seconds before fell silent, except for the metallic ring of shell casings hitting tile. Judge Naomi Carter staggered forward, her white shirt blooming red under the shoulder seam. The glass wall behind her looked like a spider's web spun out of sunlight and panic. For a second, even gravity forgot what to do. Then Naomi straightened. Her right hand pressed to her wound, her left lifting slow, palm open. "Officer," she said evenly, the way a teacher corrects a child, "holster your weapon. You just shot a federal judge." The words hung in the recycled air, electric and wrong. Officer Thomas Keller's gun hand trembled. Sweat darkened the fabric at his temples. Around him, passengers crouched behind carts and kiosks, eyes wide over the rims of suitcases. Nobody breathed. A single phone camera blinked red, then another, then a dozen more. A boy near gate C6 whispered into his live stream, "Yo, did a cop just shoot a judge?" His audience doubled, then doubled again. Naomi's voice stayed quiet, but each word landed like a gavel. "I complied. I'm unarmed. What did you see that made you pull that trigger?" Keller's mouth opened, closed. You reached." Naomi raised her right hand again, slow, deliberate. Between her fingers, a folded boarding pass to Sacramento. "For this?" she asked. "This piece of paper terrified you?" A murmur rippled through the terminal. Then came another voice, young and shaking, but steady enough to carry. "That's not what happened." Every head turned toward the metal detector. A TSA trainee, name tag reading Avery Brooks, stepped forward. His hands shook, but his chin didn't. She didn't lunge. She didn't yell. You drew before she even finished asking why she was being stopped. Sergeant Malcolm Price, gray hair, command badge, pushed through the barrier. "Officer Keller acted on perceived threat," he barked. "Non-compliant passenger, sudden movement, officer safety." Naomi's tone sliced through him. "Say that on the record." The boy's phone camera zoomed in. Blood traced down Naomi's forearm and dripped to the tile in rhythmic taps. Paramedics rushed in, one of them blurting, "Ma'am, we need to move you now." Naomi shook her head. "Not until every body cam is sealed, every witness logged, and every frame of video preserved in an unbroken chain of custody. You lose one file, and this turns from incident to crime scene tampering." Her words seemed to wake the crowd. Phones lifted higher. Somebody shouted for internal affairs. Keller still hadn't moved. His weapon hung half-raised, useless. The tremor in his wrist made the barrel twitch like a nervous animal. Price tried again. "Judge Carter, we can sort this later." "No," Naomi said. "Later is how injustice survives." Her phone buzzed inside her jacket pocket. Aunt Ruth's name flashed once before fading. She didn't answer. Blood was soaking through the makeshift bandage a paramedic pressed to her shoulder, but she didn't flinch. "Officer Keller," she said softly, "what you just did will live longer than both of us. You shot at compliance and hit consequence." The whisper spread fast, caught by microphones and murmured into phones. Federal judge, shot at airport, Phoenix. Somewhere downtown, journalist Theo Ramirez checked his inbox and found a message from an anonymous address. Not TSA, airport police, I have video. Back in Terminal 4, Naomi's legs wavered, but she stayed upright. Sergeant Price, she said, call your counsel, call your director. This is now a federal crime scene, and I'm convening the court. 6 hours earlier, before the chaos, before the smoke and glass, Naomi Carter had stood in her kitchen wearing jeans and a navy windbreaker. No robe, no escort, no privilege, just a citizen with a boarding pass and a quiet experiment. The sunrise over South Phoenix washed the countertops gold. Aunt Ruth's voice came from the speakerphone. You sure you want to do this, baby? You could send a clerk. I need to see it myself, Naomi said. See how they treat the people who don't have chambers behind their names. Ruth sighed, the sound of someone who'd seen too many headlines. Then remember, don't audition your anger. Make it testify. Naomi smiled faintly. You always say that. Because it always works. She ended the call, tucked her phone away, and looked at the robe hanging in its garment bag by the door. She hesitated, then left it there. If safety depended on fabric, the fabric was lying. The rideshare driver tried to make small talk. Naomi pretended to scroll emails. At the terminal, she joined the regular line, not pre-check, and waited. Her eyes tracked every motion. The scanner beeps, the tone in officers' voices, the subtle tightening when the traveler was brown or black. Her nephew Jaden's words echoed from weeks before. They made me feel already guilty. At Denver, she'd been asked 3 times where she was heading. At Las Vegas, an officer had held her ID up to the light so long it became theater. Phoenix, she suspected, would be the one that stopped pretending. At the far end of the checkpoint, Officer Keller adjusted his belt, eyes locking on her like a hawk spotting movement. Behind him, a training poster glowed on a tablet. Atlas Shield Security, Behavioral Threat Recognition. Naomi's fingers brushed the corner of her notebook labeled Constitutional Field Log. Time 400 memes. Step 1. Secure evidence. Step 2. Control narrative. Step 3. Legal escalation. She slid her bag onto the conveyor belt and smiled at the screener. The smile was returned with suspicion. That was the last ordinary moment before instinct replaced reason and bullets replaced procedure. Back in the present, Naomi sat against a pillar as paramedics worked around her. A camera drone from a local station hovered at the terminal edge, red light blinking. Avery Brooks stood nearby, pale but firm. Ma'am, he said quietly, they'll try to take the footage. I've already backed it up. Naomi's eyes flicked to him. Keep a copy offsite, encrypt it. And, Avery, thank you for telling the truth. He nodded once. Someone has to. The buzz of radios built again. Command units arriving, supervisors forming defensive huddles. Keller's superior, Sergeant Price, spoke low into his mic. Contain narrative before federal presence. Naomi caught the phrase and smiled through pain. Contain narrative, she repeated. Good luck with that. She looked toward the wall of phones, dozens of them streaming live, the world already watching. Justice, she thought, had found its first witness. The paramedics lifted her onto a stretcher. She allowed it this time, blood loss blurring the edges of her vision. As they wheeled her toward the sliding doors, she whispered to herself, half prayer, half promise. If institutions refuse to learn, the courtroom will teach. The doors parted. Sunlight hit the gurney like judgment. And somewhere deep in the airport's control center, servers hummed, cameras rolled, and a digital trail began to rewrite what America thought it knew about fear, authority, and the color of compliance. They wheeled Naomi toward the ambulance, and the desert light hit her face like a lighthouse beam, bright, unforgiving. She blinked, and the white-hot present bent into the softer glow of that morning, the hour before the airport learned her name. The smell wasn't cordite then. It was Ruth's cinnamon coffee and the waxed-clean scent of a little townhouse. The one with the photo wall of nieces and nephews and a framed Postal Service retirement certificate hung straight like a medal. Her robe hung by the front door, a black river on a wood hanger. She'd polished the buttons last week out of reflex, old debate team habits her clerks teased. She touched the sleeve and let her hand fall. The robe could do its job later. This morning she wanted to learn whether the only thing keeping her safe in public spaces was the weight of that fabric and a title people were trained to fear. "You're overthinking it," Aunt Ruth had said the night before, "but if you're going to overthink anything, let it be your own dignity." Ruth's laugh was a creak over stones. "Eat something, baby. Judges fainting at security ain't gonna fix America." Naomi ate half a slice of toast and pretended it was breakfast. A text from Jaden lit the phone. "You flying soon? Promise you'll text me when you land. Don't like Sky Harbor right now." She typed back, "Promise. Also promise I'll fix why you feel that way." The three dots appeared and vanished. He was 18, trying not to worry like a parent. The rideshare arrived, silver hatchback, Be Real sticker, radio up. "Terminal 4?" the driver asked, not turning it down. Naomi nodded and made herself smaller in the back seat, letting silence bear the weight. She traced letters in the fog near the vent. CFL, Constitutional Field Log. Step 1, secure evidence. Step 2, control the narrative. Step 3, escalate legally before someone else escalated with violence. At the light on 24th Street, a billboard for Atlas Shield Security rolled past. A glossy man in a navy polo pointing at icons for behavioral threat recognition. Faster response times, lower liability, instinct optimization. Naomi's jaw tensed. She knew the literature that never made it into the glossy. Implicit bias wasn't a ghost, more like fumes from a slow leak. You didn't notice it until the whole room made you dizzy. Departures curb, a bottle of water like a magic trick. "You look like you have a big day," the driver said. Naomi smiled the polite smile of someone whose big days didn't belong to strangers. Inside, the terminal was its usual beautiful mess. Parents counting kids like passports, a soldier with a carry-on the size of restraint, a red-vested volunteer explaining that a cactus can't scream through X-ray. Naomi breathed it in. She loved public places for what they said out loud about a country. Airports, courthouses, libraries, high school gyms, temples where we practice being around one another without breaking anything. She could have turned left to pre-check. Reflex tugged. She turned right into the longest rope maze, the one made of patience. A woman retied a toddler's shoe, humming "Lean on Me." A man behind her grimaced at emails with his eyebrows. The line moved. Naomi kept her shoulders soft, her gaze steady, calm, compliant, ordinary. Warning came first from memory. Denver. "Destination?" asked 3 times, the smile pretending to be harmless. Field log note. When the question isn't about items but intent, dignity bleeds a little. Not a felony, just a nick. Enough nicks and you forget you used to be whole. Las Vegas next. An ID held to the light until it became theater. "Don't see many judges," he'd said, painting a roll on her like makeup. Field log note. Security shouldn't require humiliation to feel thorough. Phoenix, plexiglass podium. "Morning," she said, warmth at the edges. The license scanned. The monitor stared back like it could confess. Polite pause stretched into suspense. "Thanks," at last. Bins and belts, shoes and laptop, hands like a peace offering to the machine. The detector whistled a neutral tone, permission granted. Then the air shifted. The pressure dropped like before a storm your bones understand. A gaze like a hand at her collar. Officer Thomas Keller, 3 yards off, not TSA, but close enough to punctuate the sentence. Eyes doing a slow left-to-right scan, hand hovering near a weapon like a doorknob before a hasty exit. On the wall, an Atlas shield slide paused. Threat indicators, demeanor, gaze, gait, refusal. She could hear a training voice she had never attended. Trust your instincts. Your gut is a liar sometimes, she thought. It's the part of you that learned the wrong math. Choices. Smile bigger. Look smaller. Ask permission for air. Instead, she chose the citizen's right. A gentle question. Officer, is there a problem? If the world were different, that sentence would have ended it. Half step closer. Choreography he didn't know he'd rehearsed. Step aside for secondary. Flint on flint. Naomi moved as asked. Palms visible, posture telegraphing good faith. Behind him, Avery Brooks watched. Helmet hair under a TSA cap, jaw set, a young man trying to hold a line without breaking it. What's the basis for secondary? She asked. So, I understand. Questions later, Keller snapped. I am complying, she said. Hands visible, gaze steady. A purse fumbled, lipstick rolled in a red arc. A toddler squealed, I did it. Travelers laughed. Half a second of humanity. The next half second broke. Jaw clicked. Cheek muscle stuttered. Thumb found the worry stone at the butt of a gun. And then the gun was in his hand. And then the muzzle was an answer to a question she hadn't asked yet. She drew breath to say, I am unarmed. She reached for the boarding pass, the small rectangle of permission, and that was the moment he fired. Time 1.3s. Everything after that became public record. Now, the gurney rocked. A strip of sky between roofline and parking structure, the robe by her door left hanging like a dare. Pain thrummed under gauze like a drummed verdict. You with me, Judge? The medic asked, young, frightened, too eager. I'm with you. We're not moving until you log the cameras, all of them. Ma'am, we're moving, she amended, feeling the soft edge of the world. And you're logging, chain of custody slate, date, time, device IDs, witness names. Start the chain now. Yes, ma'am. Say your names for the record. They did, because she sounded like someone who could fire the rain. Ambulance doors, oven heat, honest heat. Inside, dollar store moons for ceiling lights. Drips, gauze, beeps. Ruth's kitchen returned. I'll call you after security. You traveling as Naomi, not Your Honor? As Naomi. You sure you ain't just looking for a fight? I'm looking for a fact. Come back with all of you. We don't have spare parts. BP holding. We're 5 out. Tape tugged skin, cuff squeezed rhythm. The phone buzzed under fabric and tape. Jaden, the medic read, wants to know if you landed. Text him, I'm okay, I'll call soon, drink water. Valley Regional ER, a fluorescent realism called Room 3. Dr. Lorraine Pierce, eyes with 10,000 bad nights and 100 small victories. We're going to document everything properly. You've done this before. Too many times, hold still. Flash, entry wounds, powder stippling, contusion spread. These weren't warnings, Dr. Pierce said, voice like slate. Center mass shots that found a moving target by luck. You lived by inches and bad aim. I asked a question, Naomi whispered, and somebody turned your question into a weapon. The door. Avery Brooks, hat off, hair in awkward swirls, eyes wide. They suspended me. I brought something. A small black square on a keychain. My lapel cam. Auto syncs to cloud. I think it caught everything. Do you have a second copy? Mirror to a secure drive. Sent a link to a reporter. Evidence locker. Theo Ramirez. Good. They'll say you reached. The video shows a boarding pass. Your palms open. I slowed it down. I marked the frames. Voice broke. I couldn't let them lie. Not again. Not again, Naomi said, an oath the size of a breath. You did the right thing. They'll punish you for it. They already did. Keep the original safe. Keep the rest of you safe, too. You trust him, Dr. Pierce noted. I trust what fear looks like when it's tired of itself. You'll have a scar, the doctor said. I collect them. This one will earn its keep. Unknown number, voicemail transcription, Attorney General Hart's office, coordinate messaging, avoid inflaming. She called DOJ Civil Rights, Judge Naomi Carter, Emergency Judicial Review Protocols, preservation orders served on Phoenix Sky Harbor within the hour, notify U.S. Marshals. Text to her clerk, emergency docket, draft ready. Find a friendly judge to stamp if I can't sit. If I can, I will. You're still bleeding, Dr. Pierce said. I've bled through worse. I'll lie down once I stop a system from erasing itself. The door, dark suit made of expensive denial. Carter Sloan, Atlas Shield Security, here to help preserve your slides were on the wall by Checkpoint C. You train instincts to guess. We train officers to survive. Then train them to survive questions. Dr. Pierce, unless you have a court order or medical expertise, this is a treatment room, not a press pit. Out. I'm convening, court, Naomi said, to the room, to the recorder, to the future. Here or there. People will be sworn. Tapes will play. We will call things by their names. The resident returned with a fresh SD card, and a marshal appeared, jacket unbuttoned, badge at the belt. Your Honor, preservation orders spinning up. Marshals en route. Whitaker on a plane. Good. Seal the feeds. Mirror the servers. Grab external backups. Pull the dome cameras. Ask for rot logs. Rot logs. Vendors call deletions rotations. Ask for the euphemisms. That's where the bodies are buried. She closed her eyes 5 seconds. Rope lines, humming machines. The boy at C6 holding his phone like a flare. Avery's hands, shaking but steady at his sides. Keller's wrist, tremor like a warning bell he'd learned to ignore. 20 minutes slid off the clock. Pain, faithful and contained. A text from Ruth. Are you sitting down? She typed. Yes, ma'am. Don't worry. The sun is out and so am I. Ruth, make that sun work for you. Nothing ugly survives direct light. Doctor, how soon can you let me out on paper? You'll leave with instructions you'll ignore, Dr. Pierce said. But not before one more set of photos and a sworn affidavit. I'll bring a notary. Fair? Fair. Let's make sure this wound is admissible. In the hall, the marshal listed camera IDs like a poem with serial numbers. Across town, Theo opened a file labeled Carter/Phoenix Raw and scrubbed a timeline until the frames clicked into clarity. Nobody in the room saw the first wave of bots warming up to explain why a woman asking a question deserved punishment for her tone. Nobody heard an attorney general rehearse words like unity and patience. Nobody felt Carter Sloan texting, rotate mirrors. If asked, call it heat mitigation. But Naomi knew the dance, a system that prefers calm over truth. The difference this time was simple. She had been shot and survived, and survival comes with rights of its own. Okay, Dr. Pierce said, snapping off a glove. Say cheese. Flash. No, Naomi said. Say record. The nurse laughed. The resident smiled. The marshal whispered into his phone. Outside, the heat leaned on the window with the lazy patience of an Arizona afternoon, as if to say, you want to see what endures? Watch me. The next beep from the monitor landed in time with the ambulance siren fading down the block, with the click of a seal on an evidence bag back at the airport, with the digital thunk of a file uploaded to 2 different servers in 2 different states. Rhythm isn't peace, she thought, but it's a start. She fixed her gaze on the clock until the numbers clicked to the top of the hour. She took a breath that hurt and called her chambers. Put the emergency review on the calendar. Get me a bench or get me a microphone. Either way, we're in session. A notification from Theo popped at that exact second. Live. Hands up, answer down. Phoenix shot first. She didn't need to watch to know the sound of her own voice standing up inside the video, soft and certain. Officer, holster your weapon. You just shot a federal judge. The nurse tightened the bandage one last notch. We good? We're beginning, Naomi said, and the beginning felt like a door opening toward the rest of the day. A courthouse full of faces, a contractor trying not to perjure himself, a young trainee whose honesty might cost him a job, and a man with a gun who would say the quiet part out loud. She sat very still, listening to the sound of her own heartbeat, counting down to the moment when, for once, a question would be the most dangerous thing in the room, for all the right reasons. The courthouse clock hadn't started for the day yet, but the city had. Sun climbed the hospital wall like a promise it meant to keep, and Naomi felt the promise pressing back. She signed Dr. Pierce's affidavit with a steady hand, ink biting the paper like it had a stake in this too. The notary stamped and dated, the thud of the embosser oddly satisfying, and then the room turned into a war room that smelled like antiseptic and new paper. Before you go imagining you can jog to the courthouse, Dr. Pierce said, you're on a pain protocol. Minimal. You breathe through the spikes. Call me if it gets ugly. She fitted a fresh sling and looped it close. This is the only time I'm letting a patient litigate in my exam room. Noted, Naomi said, slipping the affidavit into a folder. I couldn't have scripted a better witness. I didn't do this for you, Dr. Pierce answered, eyes a level horizon. I did it for the kid I lost to a justified shooting 10 years ago. He was holding a sundae spoon. The report called it a silver object. I write precise reports now. Then we're the same kind of stubborn, Naomi said. The door pushed open. A hospital security officer leaned in. Judge, there's media forming a line outside, and a few gentlemen in suits saying they're here to assist with data integrity. Tell the gentleman the data's feeling very integrous today, Dr. Pierce said, not missing a beat. We're done here. She turned back to Naomi. I'll see you in court. Naomi nodded, then reached for her phone. A grid of missed calls and texts vibrated with urgency. She went straight to the one that mattered. Marshal Reyes, she said when the line clicked. Status. Preservation orders signed, Reyes replied. 2 teams rolling to Sky Harbor now, server room, CCTV, body cams, dome feeds, gate cams, everything that looks like an eye. We'll seize mirrors and ask for rotation logs. Ask twice, Naomi said. Then pull power and take the actual boxes. If they want to fight, quote, obstruction. You got it. The marshal hesitated. FYI, the airport authorities. General counsel is already on with the AG. They'll talk jurisdiction and public panic. We're bringing calm and subpoenas. Bring receipts, Naomi said, and hung up. Her thumb hovered over Dana Whitaker's number when a text from a DC area code arrived. On the runway, agents en route. Do not worry about the AG, I'll handle her. Naomi smiled. She liked people who spoke in verbs. She pushed herself off the exam cot and tested the floor. Standing hurt less than lying down. Good. She had always worked better upright. A small buzz in the hallway turned into a voice she recognized. Avery again, badge clipped to his pocket instead of his chest. He looked like someone told he no longer belonged in rooms, but had decided to show up anyway. They took my access, he said, hovering at the doorframe. The sling on Naomi's shoulder hardened his expression. I'm sorry. You didn't put a gun in your coworker's hand, Naomi said. You put a camera in yours. That's the only reason truth gets a seat. Avery swallowed. I sent the link to Theo, he responded. Almost on cue, Naomi's phone buzzed. Evidence locker, draft hold, contact received. She called the number. It picked up on the first ring. Judge Carter? Theo sounded caffeinated in the bloodstream. First off, glad you're alive. 30 minutes and I can have a clean, metadata-backed post with corroborated frames. You don't have 30 minutes, Naomi said. You have now. They're already rehearsing a story. Then I'll publish, then update, Theo said. Run me through your chain of custody notes. Naomi gave bullet points, crisp as docket entries, timestamps, device IDs, the paramedic whose names she made state on camera. Keyboard clacks in counterpoint. All right, Theo said. Title, hands up, answer down, Phoenix shot first. Your face okay on a thumbnail? I'd rather my hands, Naomi said. Open. Empty. Better. One more thing. I'm hearing a vendor name. Atlas Shield. Training slide in the terminal, Naomi said. Behavioral threat recognition, instincts, correlation. They'll say they don't profile. They'll be lying politely. Got it, Theo said. Publishing in 5. I'll cross-load to every mirror we've built. Make a separate cache for law enforcement, Naomi added. Stuff they can't claim got lost in transfer. Already done. Judge, this might blow big. It needs to, Naomi said, ending the call. The hallway's colors seemed to saturate. A nurse wheeled past. 2 suited men murmured by the fountain and glanced away. Naomi felt the day take its first proper breath. Down in the Sky Harbor sub-basement, AC humming like white noise, fluorescent light turning skin to paper. A tech named Maya L. watched a progress bar crawl. You really want me to run Delta? He asked the man in the navy polo beside him. Carter Sloane's smile was smooth as a polished floor. Heat mitigation, he said. It's protocol. We rotate logs under strain so the system doesn't crash. Perfectly standard. Maya L. eyed the readouts. 67 degrees, steady. He eyed the email. Delta rotation, ASAP. He wasn't stupid. He also wasn't brave enough to risk the mortgage. Fingers hovered. If someone asks, they won't, Sloane said, and if they do, tell the truth. We rotate logs under strain. Click. Somewhere a file tree adjusted with a small invisible shrug. Sloane patted his shoulder like a coach after a bunt. Good man, he texted. Rotation complete. Then another to Sergeant Price. Move on messaging. Non-compliant. Officer safety. You know the drill. Upstairs, Sergeant Malcolm Price stood in an incident room that smelled like carpet cleaner and old coffee. Whiteboard header, narrative alignment. Bullets, non-compliance. Sudden movement, officer safety, public safety. All statements should reflect SOP, he dictated. Avoid speculation. Reference training, keep it calm. His eyes slid to a TV chyron, federal judge shot at PHX. He dialed Keller, 6 rings, no answer, voicemail. Find him, he told the room, and get ahead of this Atlas Shield thing. Across town, in a one-room office of audio foam and 2 mics, Theo worked like a demolitions expert disarming a bomb. Avery's clip scrubbed 1x to 0.25x. Freeze the instant Naomi's hand rose with nothing but paper. Reflection magnified, the muzzle flare a visible star. Lower third, frame 44, weapon drawn before question ends. Keller's breath line jagged into mountains. A pull quote to the top like a banner. Later is how injustice survives. A DM pinged. I'm a server tech at Sky Harbor. They're wiping, calling it rotation. Secure drop sent. 10 seconds later, a zip file began to download. Hello, sweetheart, he said, encrypting before opening. Publish. The post hit his site and then everything else. A river through tributaries, Twitter, Instagram, a YouTube mirror, 3 cloud buckets, and a shared drive titled Receipts. 90 seconds, 3 cable bookers emailed. He ignored them. He answered a kid from a Phoenix high school newspaper instead. Back at the hospital, Avery's phone buzzed. It's out, he said. It's everywhere. Naomi didn't check numbers. She didn't need to. Virality feels like thunder, arriving before the sound fully registers. She started making calls: Chambers, friendly judges, the clerk's office, the U.S. attorney. I'm convening an emergency hearing regarding federal rights at a federal adjacent facility. We're not waiting for someone else to define this thing. The Attorney General's office called back. The deputy sounded composed the way a teleprompter sounds composed. Judge Carter, A.G. Hart would appreciate coordination on messaging, public confidence, airport, and law enforcement. Confidence is not a costume, Naomi said. We're not staging a community theater play. We're documenting a shooting. We'd hate to see this politicized. It already is, Naomi replied. The politics chose bullets. Her clerk texted a photo. The largest courtroom at the Sandra Day O'Connor Federal Building, 9 a.m., overflow rooms opened. A colleague, proud of you. Need anything? Another judge, do not let them corner you into an ethics cul-de-sac. You're within your authority. The country needs you to believe that. Push alert. Evidence locker. 87,000 views in 15 minutes. Comments split like cells. Type justice. Drop your city. Tag your council member. Lawyers traded sites. A 2019 white paper on behavioral threat training correlating to higher stops of black travelers. A contract showing instinct reinforcement underlined like a confession. In the incident room, timelines warped. We're getting killed out there, a junior officer said. We don't fight the internet, Price replied. We stick to statements and pray for a slow news day. He dialed Keller again. Voicemail. The phone felt heavier than an hour ago. At Atlas Shield's regional office, tasteful gray, branded pens like bait. Carter Sloan practiced sympathy in a mirror. We're devastated. We partner to keep people safe. Evidence-based, rigorously vetted. We stand with the truth. PR text. Push statement in 10. Emphasize de-escalation modules. Use photo with diverse class. Alert. New post. Hands up. Answer down. He watched frames tick by, watched instinct become a weapon in a headline, watched his job turn into a deposition. Okay, he told the screen. Let's see how you play in the big room. Big room, small room. The real room was where people were startled into honesty. Back in the ER, Avery stood very straight, posture as shield. Judge, they're going to write me up for insubordination. They're going to write you down for integrity, Naomi said. It just won't be on their letterhead. I don't know what to do. Tell the truth under oath. And before that, call your mother and tell her you did the right thing. Mothers deserve a head start on the world. She's a nurse, he said. She'll tell me to drink water and sit down. She's a genius, Naomi said. They'll blackball me. You'll sleep, Naomi said. Sometimes that's the only promotion that matters. The resident returned with forms and a traveling notary. Dr. Pierce had prepared a clinical report like a closing argument. Wound mapping, entry angles, powder residue, distance estimate, absence of defensive wounds. One scalpel sentence, trajectory and grouping consistent with training to neutralize perceived threat at center mass. Naomi signed, then looked up. This is the part where I tell you thank you. This is the part where I tell you you're not bulletproof, Dr. Pierce said. Don't get addicted to being brave. Noted. Naomi slid off the cot, the room tilted and righted. Payne checked back in like a supervisor. Let's go to work. Phone vibration, DC exchange. Judge Carter, Dana Whitaker said, voice like a gavel strike. 10,000 feet and falling. Order templates prepped. 2 agents sitting on your server tech right now asking him to define rotation under oath. We'll need a tight circle. Seize today versus audit later. Seize everything now. Audit forever later, Naomi said. Start with the dome feeds, then checkpoint cams, then officer body cams, then the back-end servers. Vendor Atlas Shield. Their logs matter. Already on my list, Dana said. Also, the AG wants a joint presser at noon. I'll be in court, Naomi said. Good answer, Dana replied and hung up. A nurse peeked in. Judge, There's a kid in the lobby holding a sign that says, "Tell the truth, Avery." Is that related? Avery winced. That's my little cousin. I told him not to. Let him stay, Naomi said. It's nice when courage looks like poster board. 20 minutes later, wheelchair she didn't want, a back exit, a marshal with a face that treats threats like math. Your Honor, we'll take you in under the ramp. Avoid the press scrum. Thank you, and tell your people at the airport I want room temperatures recorded for the server room every minute for 12 hours. If I hear heat mitigation, I want to embarrass it with facts. Yes, ma'am. The car rolled, stucco, sky, palm fronds, pretending the desert was gentle. The courthouse rose like a bluff, flat-faced and serious. The place people climbed, hoping it would be taller on the inside. Theo's update buzzed. 150K views. Local station requested the raw. I sent the mirror. Atlas Shield statement about saving lives. Adding deleted logs paragraph. Kid from C6 wants to testify. Naomi typed, get his parents. Full name. We don't use children without protecting them first. Ruth texted, you wearing flats? Don't be stupid. Flats and a sling. Doctor says I'm mortal, Naomi replied. 3 clapping emojis, and a grocery list like Resilience had a menu. Greens, broth, something sweet, garage ramp, shade, marshals. Elevator doors open like a stage queue. A text from a blocked number. We know what you're doing. Don't test us. She let it sit unacknowledged. If threats had power, hospitals wouldn't need morgues. She stepped into the elevator. Ma'am, anything you need before we go up? The marshal asked. Yes, she said. I need everyone to stop pretending that erasing video is the same thing as keeping people calm. Doors met. The car rose. Mechanical hum, soft hiss of recycled air. Floor numbers blinked toward a courtroom where words would weigh more than weapons. Where Avery's shaky courage would become record. Where Carter Sloan's mirror-polished lines would meet a wall of affidavits. Where Sergeant Price's memo would look smaller under oath. Where Theo's edits would be projected 3 stories tall for strangers with hearts in their throats. Ping. Naomi stood straighter, favored arm snug in the sling, one hand free. Doors opened onto a hallway smelling of carpet, authority, freshly printed dockets. The clerk at the far end looked up, registered her and stood. Judge Carter? He said, voice hushed in that courtroom way that turns awe into logistics. We've got the big room ready, overflow on 2 floors, media in the plaza, and your aunt is in the 2nd row with a Tupperware. Of course she is, Naomi said, then softer. Let's make this count. She walked forward, head high, the day marching beside her, the evidence no longer sleeping, angry and awake and encoded, ready to be sworn in. The door to the big courtroom didn't so much swing as inhale, and every head turned like iron filings to a magnet. Naomi stepped through on the exhale. The wood paneling caught the morning light, and the seal over the bench looked heavier than usual, as if it understood what it was about to witness. She smelled paper and printer heat and a whisper of lemon polish. Familiar and a little holy. The clerk stood, voice steady. All rise. They rose. Overflow rooms on 2 floors rose with them, a soft thunder traveling through the building. Naomi climbed the few steps to the bench, one palm grazing the rail for balance, sling snug, breath measured. She sat. The room settled, refusing to be quiet, but committed to listening. This emergency hearing is now in session, the clerk finished. The Honorable Naomi Elise Carter presiding. Naomi looked over the room and let the silence do a circuit. To her left, counsel table, Patricia Donnelly, rigid, tablet lit like a small shield, a younger associate sweating through his collar, a row of airport authority faces, tight, pale, carefully neutral. To her right, Dana Whitaker, jacket off, sleeves rolled, a legal pad written on with purpose, not panic. Behind the government table, Avery, hands clasped, knuckles white, A little cousin in the second row with a sign tucked low, "Tell the truth, Avery." Second row center, Aunt Ruth, Tupperware in her lap, dish towel like contraband mercy. "Counsel," Naomi said, "we'll begin with preliminary motions." Donnelly rose before the last syllable landed. "Your Honor, the airport authority moves for your immediate recusal. The appearance of impropriety—" Naomi lifted a hand, just enough. "Sit, Ms. Donnelly. You may make your argument without performing it." Donnelly swallowed, tried again, softer. "Respectfully, Judge, you were the victim of the underlying incident. The public will question whether you can be impartial in adjudicating the conduct of the officer and the policies involved. We also note that your injuries may—" "My injuries are documented," Naomi said evenly. "My judgment is not. The standard is whether a judge's impartiality might reasonably be questioned. I have no financial stake, no private relationship, and no predisposition beyond my oath. Experience of injustice isn't bias, it's context. Motion denied. If proximity to harm disqualified a judge from understanding harm, we'd be left with a bench that knows nothing about the country it serves." Donnelly stood a beat too long, then sat. "Government," Naomi said. "Any preliminary issues?" Dana rose. "Only this. Pursuant to preservation orders, federal agents are securing digital media across airport systems as we speak. Chain of custody affidavits will be introduced as they arrive." "Good," Naomi said. "This court will hear evidence on 3 questions. First, the conduct of Officer Thomas Keller. Second, the policies and supervision within Sky Harbor Airport Police and the Airport Authority. And third, the role and influence of Atlas Shield Security's training curricula on constitutional compliance. We proceed now." She nodded to the clerk. "Call the first witness." The court calls Avery Brooks. Avery rose like a man walking a high diving board, each step measured. He swore the oath, voice cracking once, then finding its register. The mic picked up the soft tap of his thumb against wood. 1, 2, 3, keeping time against panic. "Mr. Brooks," Dana began, gentle as a hand on a shoulder. "Where do you work?" "Transportation security," he said. "Trainee, probationary." "Sky Harbor." "Did you record the events at Terminal 4 yesterday morning?" "Yes, ma'am. Lapel camera I bought myself. Timestamps, metadata on by default." "Why did you start recording?" "Because the officer's voice changed," he said. "There's a tone some guys get when they decide they're right and the rest of us are decorations." "Do you see the device in this courtroom?" "It's been surrendered," he said, nodding to a sealed evidence bag. "Your Honor, we move to admit Government Exhibit 1, Brooks lapel video, and to play a portion." "Admitted," Naomi said. "Play it." The screens descended with a soft whir, and the courtroom dimmed the way rooms do when they prepare to remember. The video came up raw and close, human tilt. Naomi on screen, navy windbreaker, white tee, hands visible, no tremor. Keller stepped into frame, holster a black punctuation mark. Her voice. "Is there a problem?" His. "Hands where I can see them. Move to secondary." Her mouth formed the question that became a trigger. "Why am I being detained?" "Freeze at frame 44, Dana said. The image glowed, Keller's hand on the weapon, safety click, crisp as a metronome. "Resume." Muzzle flash bloomed. 3 shots, punctuation nobody earned. Passengers ducked. The crowd remembered how to scream, cut, pop. The room stayed quiet, waiting for permission to breathe. "Mr. Brooks," Dana asked softly, "did Judge Carter raise her voice or make any sudden movements before the first shot?" "No," she asked a question. "Did she reach for a weapon?" "No, she held a boarding pass." No further questions. "Cross, Ms. Donnelly?" "Mr. Brooks," Donnelly tried, "you're on probation. Would you curry favor by framing this video?" "No, ma'am," Avery blurted, breath returning. You don't curry favor by filming an officer. You get your access pulled. Your angles are limited, she pressed. Details outside the frame might explain. Ms. Donnelly, Naomi said. We all saw what's inside the frame. Move on. No further questions. Step down, Mr. Brooks. The court calls Sergeant Malcolm Price. Price took the stand like a man performing a civic duty he resented. How long have you supervised at Sky Harbor? 22 years with the department, 11 at the airport, 2 as supervisor. Responsibilities? Scheduling, training coordination, incident review, keep things moving, keep people safe. Do your trainings include Atlas Shield modules? We contract for refreshers, officer safety, situational awareness, standard stuff. Behavioral threat indicators? Sure, one tool, like anything else. Explain attitude markers as used in your emails. I don't recall. Government Exhibit 7, Dana said, placing a printout. Your email 3 months ago scheduling a remedial for Officer Keller. Quote, we need to talk about his reliance on attitude markers, non-compliance posture, questioning tone as proxy for actual threat. Price's jaw ticked. We're recalibrating instincts. They're not always constitutional, Dana finished. Yet you referenced those instincts yesterday in your memo, correct? Officer safety is paramount. Is truth paramount? Withdrawn, she added lightly. Sergeant, within hours of the shooting, were Delta rotation logs executed under Atlas Shield direction? I don't manage IT, so you didn't order deletions. We don't delete, he recited. We rotate under strain. Nothing further. Donnelly crossed fast. Hesitation can cost lives? Absolutely. Officers rely on instincts? They do. Questioning a lawful command raises risk? It can. Next witness, Naomi said. Officer Thomas Keller. A hum cut through the room. Keller stood, Union reps like bookends, smaller in a borrowed suit, collar flushing red. He took the oath, eyes down. How long with airport police? 8 years. On duty at Terminal 4 at 0813? Yes. Did you fire your weapon? Yes. At whom? At Judge. At Ms. Carter. Why? Officer safety, he said, like a raft. Describe the threat that justified lethal force. She challenged a command. She asked a question, Dana said. She moved. Show me, Dana said, turning to the screen. Exhibit 1, 08-13-21 to 29. Slow, then normal. Point to the move that justified 3 rounds. His eyes skittered. It's the attitude, the way she looked at me. A ripple, half gasp, half something uglier. Naomi raised a hand, and it died. Dana's voice softened and sharpened. Did your training ever instruct you that a black woman's confidence is threat adjacent? No, we don't. I'm not racist. Naomi leaned forward. Officer Keller? Look at me. He looked. Couldn't hold it. Tried again. When you saw me, what did you see? His mouth worked, pleading, colliding with confession. I saw someone who wasn't afraid of me. Like she didn't need to follow orders the way other people do. Other people, Naomi echoed. Define other. People who respect law enforcement. People like who? I don't know. I do, Naomi whispered. People who look like me. Officer Keller, is that fair? His shoulders slumped. I don't know what's fair anymore. That's the first true thing you've said, Naomi replied. Step down. Don't leave the building. Next witness, Dr. Lorraine Pierce. Doctor, you treated Judge Carter? I did. Describe her wounds. 3 gunshot wounds, one grazing left shoulder with significant bleeding, 2 impacts to upper torso failing to penetrate due to deflection angles, likely as the body shifted during fire. Distance was estimate? Under 10 feet, stippling and powder residue. Intent inference? Overruled, Naomi said gently. Grouping and trajectory consistent with training to neutralize a perceived threat at center mass. These were not warning shots. Final witness for this block, Carter Sloan of Atlas Shield Security. Sloan, suit with opinions, oath sworn, smile calibrated. What is Atlas Shield's role? Training partner, evidence-based modules, de-escalation, behavioral awareness, best practices nationwide. Do you teach instinct reinforcement? Experienced officers develop pattern recognition. We coach assessment of behaviors that correlate with risk. Do those correlations track race? We don't teach race. We teach safety. Government Exhibit 12, Dana said, pressing play. Sloan's recorded voice filled the room. Not saying profile by race, that's illegal, but certain demographic groups tend to exhibit behaviors that correlate with security risks. You'll learn the signs, posture, questions, attitude. Trust your instincts. Political correctness can get you killed. Out of context, Sloan managed. Then put it in context, Dana said. When identity and behavior blur in perception, what then? That's a supervision issue, he said, passing the heat. One more question. Did you instruct IT personnel to perform delta rotation yesterday? We don't delete, he recited. We rotate under strain. The government calls Agent Whitaker. An agent took the stand, 2 stapled affidavits in hand. What did you find in the server room? Rotation logs initiated 12 minutes after the shooting. Temperature stable, no heat mitigation required. Mirrored drives indicate file deletion outside routine parameters. Who authorized? Admin login with Atlas Shield privileges. Name matched to Carter Sloan. Sloan lifted his hands a quarter inch. We maintain systems to support clients. We don't. You maintain systems, Dana said, and yesterday you maintained a narrative. Move the affidavits into evidence, she added, and request leave to file obstruction charges under separate cover. Granted, Naomi said. Donnelly sprang up, bumping the table. Your Honor, this has become a fishing expedition against a valued vendor. The airport authority is being tried for one officer's choices and the misinterpretations of TikTok. Sit down, Naomi said. Not loud, just final. The people flying through your terminal are not misinterpretations, Ms. Donnelly. They are citizens. Aunt Ruth made a tiny in the second row. The court reporter smiled without meaning to. Naomi set her pen down and let her eyes move over the gallery. Activists with notepads, airline employees with folded arms, a young mother bouncing a baby who gurgled like it didn't know the world yet. She felt the tug to speak from the bone and held it for the right second. This court will recess for 30 minutes, she said, voice level as a horizon. When we return, we will address individual liability and institutional remedy. Counsel, use this time to decide whether you plan to help this community heal or insist on tearing the scab off until it bleeds again. She struck the gavel once. The sound ricocheted in the chest more than the ear. People stood without instruction, the air filling with the low thunder of voices restarting. At the government table, Dana leaned in. You good? I'm upright, Naomi said. That's enough. Aunt Ruth waited at the side door, perfectly timed, pressing a Tupperware into Naomi's uninjured hand. Mashed yams, don't argue. I wouldn't dare, Naomi said, and the laugh between them felt like oxygen to the heart. Marshals guided her into chambers. The door closed. One breath against the wood. On the desk, her draft orders waited. Paragraphs like measured thunder, remedies like scaffolding someone else would have to climb. Outside, reporters warming questions, counsels warming denials. Down in the lobby, a kid with a sign sat. cross-legged, sipping a Capri Sun like truth tasted like fruit punch. In the garage, a van idled, training company decals ghosted, a driver tapping his wheel to classic rock for men who believe in the inevitability of themselves. Naomi took one forkful of yams, sweetness sitting with the ache. She read the first line of the order again. Protocols exist to protect rights, not to excuse their violation. She underlined it once, hard. A knock, 2-minute warning. She was already standing, folder under her arm, shoulders squared against the sling. The day locked into place like a magazine clicking home. She opened the door and stepped into the corridor, the noise rising like a tide she'd been waiting all her life to meet. The corridor sounded like rain before a monsoon, a hush that can't stay hush. A marshal opened the courtroom door, and the noise cut off mid-breath. Naomi stepped in with the folder tucked to her side, the sling pressed neat against her jacket, the taste of Aunt Ruth's yams still ghosting sweet at the back of her throat. The clerks' all rise rolled like a wave, hitting every pew, every overflow room, every hallway with a screen. Naomi sat. The room followed. She didn't look at Keller or Donnelly or Sloan yet. She looked at the seal, then she looked at the people. "Thank you," she said. "Please be seated." The muffled scrape of benches, a bracelet clinked on wood. Naomi set the folder down and lifted the first page. Her voice was level enough to steady hands. This court has reviewed live testimony, video and audio exhibits, chain of custody affidavits, internal communications, and training materials introduced today. We have also considered the conduct of the parties during and after the incident. A breath moved through the gallery like a warning. On the question of individual liability, Officer Thomas Keller of Sky Harbor Airport Police discharged his weapon 3 times at an unarmed citizen who was in visible compliance and posed no imminent threat to anyone's safety. Lethal force was deployed in response to a constitutionally protected question. Based on the evidence before this court, I find Officer Keller guilty of assault with a deadly weapon under color of law. The words didn't echo. They landed like stone into clay, making shape. Keller's head tipped forward a fraction. One of his reps touched his elbow. He didn't seem to feel it. Naomi turned the page. Individual guilt, however, is not the end of the analysis. It is the beginning. The record shows a pattern of attitude markers and behavioral indicators used as proxy for lawful predicates, a supervisory culture that treated questions as defiance, and a vendor pipeline that translated fear into training and training into policy. The airport authorities' post-incident response, rotations of digital evidence with no technical necessity, was designed not to preserve truth, but to stress test its erasure. Donnelly stood, voice tight. "Objection." "Sit," Naomi said, the single syllable clearing the aisle like a plow through snow. This court therefore issues the following orders, effective immediately. Her cadence shifted into the slow, deliberate hammer of policy. First, all lethal force protocols at Sky Harbor Airport Police that rely on behavior-only predicates, absent articulable, rights-compatible predicates, are suspended pending constitutional review under the supervision of the Department of Justice Civil Rights Division. Second, the Phoenix Airport Authority is placed under a 5-year federal monitorship, reporting quarterly to DOJ. The monitor will have authority to access training materials, personnel files, incident reports, and raw footage. The monitor is empowered to recommend discipline and refer criminal matters to prosecutors. Third, a civilian oversight board is established for airport policing functions, independent, composed of community members, retired judges, civil rights advocates, airline labor representatives, and a data scientist with subpoena power. Fourth, all incident footage, body-worn, fixed camera, and auxiliary feeds must be retained for not less than 5 years. Any deletion or rotation outside a published retention schedule filed with this court will be presumed obstruction of justice absent a sworn technical necessity. Fifth, within 90 days, the airport authority shall publish a public dashboard detailing stops, detentions, secondary screenings, uses of force, and outcomes disaggregated by race, age, gender, and reason for the interaction. Data updated monthly. Readable by a layperson. Sixth, all sworn and unsworn personnel will complete bias certification training that meets standards approved by DOJ and this court. Failure to certify within 120 days results in removal from public-facing duties. Repeated failure results in termination. Seventh, Atlas Shield Security is enjoined from providing training to any airport police function within this district pending review of curricula for constitutional compliance. Existing contracts are frozen. Upon a finding of material contribution to discriminatory practices, financial penalties and debarment will follow. Eighth, this court refers potential obstruction charges for those who initiated and executed the so-called Delta rotation within hours of the shooting. Marshals are authorized to enforce all subpoenas. Naomi paused, silence layered on silence, as if the whole building needed a second to find where to put its heart. Protocols exist to protect rights, she said, not to excuse their violation. Fear is not law. Instinct is not probable cause. A badge is not a license to demand submission. The Constitution does not stop at the magnetometer. A sound rose, too raw to be applause, too reverent to be a cheer, then faded, caught by the gravity of the moment. Naomi didn't smile. She wasn't here to enjoy this. She was here to make it hold. Donnelly found her feet again, words arriving like a person running downhill. Your Honor, the scope of these remedies is staggering. You're creating boards, commandeering contracts, imposing data regimes. This is legislative work. With respect, this is judicial overreach. Naomi's eyebrows lifted barely a degree. Constitutional reach, she said. It reaches everywhere the government touches the people. If your policies can reach into a traveler's pocket for their boarding pass, this court can reach into your policy to ask why. A stir at the back, two marshals moved toward the aisle where the IT manager, thin, fidgety, badge lanyard still on like a superstition, sat folded into himself. He saw the warrant, closed his eyes as if turning off a light inside his head, stood, and let himself be guided out, legs trying to learn the choreography of consequence. Agent Whitaker slid a paper forward. Dana rose. Your Honor, per your referral, we move to file under seal the names responsible for initiating the command strings that deleted mirrored logs. Granted, Naomi said. In addition, she said, turning one last page, this court will convene a remedial panel, 2 retired judges, 1 community elder, 1 data expert, and the DOJ monitor to ratify a replacement protocol set that complies with the 4th and 14th Amendments. You will have 60 days to bring standards that treat all travelers like citizens. If you don't, the panel will. The gavel struck once, low, not loud, like thunder, farther off than it felt. And then the room did what rooms do when the air changes pressure. It moved. Hands came together, then apart, then together again. Some people cried, others clasped their mouths. A young mother lifted her baby up, as if to show her the shape of a world where this could happen. Outside, microphones were already breeding on tripods. The courthouse steps grabbed sunlight, TV trucks blinked like nervous birds. Naomi emerged into a day the desert had made sharp and honest. Marshals formed a human corridor and stopped at the tape line. A reporter with a pinched face leaned toward the line. Judge Carter, are you concerned about creating a constitutional crisis? Vendors argue you've chilled life-saving training. Airport authority says lives will be lost. Naomi leaned just enough to be picked up by the mic. "It's very simple," she said. "If your training only works when people surrender their rights, it doesn't work. It's not training, it's a script for fear. We can do better, we will." "Judge, are you politically motivated?" someone shouted. "If the Constitution is political to you," she said, "that's your confession, not mine." The crowd murmured, half laughter, half relief that somebody spoke plain. The sun laid its heat over her like a sentence she could live with. On a lower step, Aunt Ruth slipped through with anti-stealth. No hug, cameras, and a sling, but a touch at Naomi's elbow, a pulse of warmth through wool. "You didn't break it," she whispered. "You just made it tell the truth." "I'll take that," Naomi said. By late afternoon, the city sounded different. Sirens farther away, car radios tuned to talk shows with callers saying, "I fly every week, and my cousin got pulled for random every time, and I didn't think it could happen here." In a press room, AG Denise Hart practiced careful. "The Attorney General's office respects the court's ruling. Our focus is compliance and safety." "Do you plan to appeal?" "We plan to comply," she said. "Appeals are for points of law. Today is a point of conscience. Time 900 plums." At Atlas Shield, a stakeholder call leaked within minutes. "We categorically reject bias," Carter Sloan said. "Our modules have saved lives. We will pursue all remedies." A heat map slid by. A cherry emoji in chat called it cherry-picked. The stock ticker hiccuped, then sloped down like a promise getting tired. At a diner on Van Buren, cracked vinyl, neon, open buzzing, Theo hammered a headline, the Carter Standard, when a courtroom outranks fear. He embedded video, clipped training audio, annotated rotation logs, added a box. "Here's how your airport can audit itself." He hit publish and watched the graph grow like a heartbeat learning steady. In Naomi's chambers, clerks stacked draft orders. A marshal set down coffee that tasted like effort. Dana leaned in the doorway. "We'll backstop the order," she said, soft enough not to bruise anything. "Brick by brick," Naomi nodded. "I know." "Protection detail stands," Dana added, "visible without being obnoxious." "You'll try," Naomi said, a small smile appearing like a polite guest. Her phone vibrated. Names stacked like pillars. "If they come for you, they'll find us first." Warmth settled. Not fearlessness, but less alone. The other messages were not warm. Threats poured in disguised as patriotism and law and order. "You hate cops. We know where you live. You don't get to change America." She set the phone face down like closing a door and turned back to work. While Phoenix burned beautiful orange, the first knock happened at a suburb door. A senior systems administrator became a defendant. He tried to explain rotation versus deletion as if vocabulary could push consequence off a ledge. He was polite. He brought his jacket. His wife cried without ugly sounds. Words like, "We'll fix it," fell to the doormat and didn't bounce. Inside the airport, Sergeant Price faced his squad. "We comply," he said, syllables heavy like he was carrying them for the first time. "No exceptions. If a traveler asks why, say why. If you don't know, say you don't know. If you can't articulate the predicate, you don't have one." A young officer raised a hand. "What about instinct?" "You don't get to call it instinct if it always points in the same direction." Across town, Avery stood in his mother's kitchen. Cilantro and dish soap saying you're safe even if you're not. An email from a .gov address. Civil Rights Division. Analyst interview. His mother dabbed her eyes. "You were built for truth. Go give it a job." He texted Naomi. "I'll keep filming even if it's spreadsheets." Naomi replied, "The work continues." By night, the order spun into 100 segments. Panels, podcasts, living rooms with TVs too big for the wall. A former Homeland Security official, a necessary reset. A baggage handler's rep. We can't get caught in crossfire because someone is offended by a question. A sheriff on a hot mic. Put the dashboard on the agenda. I'd rather answer questions than write checks. At 11:23 p.m., someone spray-painted a slur on Naomi's garage door. Marshals logged it. The city sent a crew. Aunt Ruth texted the block. By midnight, 6 porch lights were on, and a kid with a hose rinsed paint away like dust that chose the wrong house. Naomi went home to morning smells and evening quiet. She hung the robe where it lived and sat at the small kitchen table where her best sentences were born. She opened the laptop. The blue light kissed the Tupperware like an altar. She drafted, Implementation Notes, Carter Standard. The cursor waited with a little heartbeat. She typed, The Constitution is practical. Treat it that way. Public dashboard schema, oversight board bylaws, training evaluation rubrics, whistleblower channel, language access, disability accommodations, hold the damn line. The clock clicked past midnight, a metronome steady enough to teach anyone to keep time. Outside, the city cooled. Somewhere a fluorescent tube over a security lane got replaced. Somewhere a dad told his daughter, See, you can ask questions. Somewhere a supervisor practiced saying, Pitch first. I don't know, but I'll find out. Into a mirror. Naomi closed the laptop and looked at the garment bag by the door. The robe inside like a ghost she loved. She didn't touch it. She just looked, and a thought landed, clear as glass. To finish this right, the robe might have to come off. Not tonight. Tonight, she slept with windows cracked and a city adjusting to new rules, settling into its bones like a good rain after a long summer. In the morning, Sky Harbor would open to the first day of a different kind of safe. Lines would snake in patient curves. An officer would hand a little girl her stuffed giraffe with 2 hands and a smile that didn't ask for anything back. A traveler would ask, Why the secondary? And get a sentence, not a sneer. The dashboard would still be a wireframe, the oversight board, a set of names on a draft, the debarment letter, a threat on letterhead. But the principle was already live. And principles, once spoken out loud and written down in a place that matters, are hard to unhear and harder to undo. By the time Phoenix cooled into a mild September morning, the airport had learned a new way to breathe. Terminal 4 held its usual music, rollers on tile, families counting heads, a business traveler pacing with a finger to his ear, but the pitch had shifted, like the city had tuned the instrument. Naomi walked the concourse with her carry-on rolling behind her, the sling gone, the scar tucked beneath a crisp blouse. She kept her pace calm and ordinary on purpose. Ordinary mattered now. At the magnetometers, a young officer, name tag Williams, stepped into the light. Fresh cut, no chip on the shoulder. He looked at Naomi's ID, looked up again, and you could see the click. Oh, no scene, no theater. He squared his stance like he'd practiced. Ma'am, please place your items on the belt. When she handed over her laptop, he took it with both hands. Not like property, like a simple thing to be careful with. Have a great flight. Naomi paused, almost smiled. You too. He grinned anyway, crooked, young, and waved a nervous traveler through with a quiet, You're good. The woman's shoulders dropped that 1 inch that separates dignity from humiliation. The terminal windows threw desert sun across the floor. Over the security office door, a simple bronze plaque caught the light. Dignity is not a courtesy. It is policy. Naomi didn't stop. You don't linger at your own shadow. You keep moving so the light can do its work. A few hours later, in a fluorescent hallway at a federal building, fresh paint, coffee that knew its purpose. Avery Brooks stood at a desk. A woman slid him a badge. Department of Justice, Civil Rights Division, analyst. It felt heavier than expected. He clipped it on and caught a reflection, the version of himself who hadn't hit record, who kept his job by swallowing his witness. That version was already a stranger. A short, bald supervisor, mean in the good way, held out files like a dare. "You're Brooks." "Yes, sir." "You already made us a problem in Phoenix." "Yes, sir." "Good. Audit 3 airports and don't make friends. Phoenix, Albuquerque, Salt Lake. If someone asks what you're doing, tell them you're counting, because we count what we care about." He turned, then back. "Nice work. Don't let it go to your head. We need your head." Avery opened the first file. Tables, dashboards, timestamps, words that live like mold in institutional air. Communication issue, misunderstanding, fit the profile. His wrist itched where the lapel cam used to sit. He didn't need the plastic anymore. The job was the lens now. Across town, in a co-working space with suspiciously healthy plants, Theo Ramirez recorded, "Welcome back to Evidence Locker. Today we're open sourcing a toolkit for a Carter standard audit. Templates, walkthroughs, a lexicon, and chain of custody for the cloud era." Technical difficulties is not a technical term. It's an alibi. His inbox already held notes from church groups, student associations, and a pilot's wives Facebook group that did more research in a weekend than some councils do in a year. On the 15th floor of a building that looked like a credit score, Carter Sloan of Atlas Shield sat under deposition lights, emails enlarged on foam boards, dead butterflies on pins. DOJ counsel. On March 23rd, did you replace the word profile with behavioral schematic? We refine language to keep pace with best practices. Is that a yes? Yes. And did you instruct a delta rotation of mirrored logs 4 hours after Ms. Carter was shot? I suggested routine maintenance. A printout slid forward. Delete. Rooms go quiet when air takes a knee. Outside, a baggage handler in a reflective vest asked a community organizer, "You think they'll actually get him?" "We already got what we needed," she said, smiling with edges. "Truth doesn't need a plea deal to be true." Back downtown, the Sandra Day O'Connor courthouse felt cooler, like a building remembering shade. Keller's sentencing drew the curious, the tired, and the hate watchers. Naomi read the findings, not because she doubted, but because certainty is a privilege the court earns every time. "Mr. Keller," she said, "service cannot invert the relationship between the state and the citizen. You discharged your weapon at an unarmed woman who asked why she was being detained. You confess that her confidence threatened your sense of authority. That is not an aggravating factor. It is the heart of the harm." Sentence 3 years for assault under color of law, supervised release, mandatory training he would never use on a job he would never hold again. A small sound in the second row, not triumph, relief maybe, or sorrow finally admitting its ending. A day later, under a Lego collection of microphones, Naomi sat beneath flags on Capitol Hill. "The dashboard requirement is not punishment," she read. "It is a flashlight. It lets the public see what you see, and it protects good officers. Data is not a weapon if you use it as a mirror." A member from Ohio. "My sheriffs say this handcuffs them." "It will handcuff bias," Naomi said. "It will handcuff guessing. It will handcuff the instinct to call fear experience. It will free your sheriffs to do lawful work without lawsuits bleeding your county budget." By afternoon, 6 port authorities signaled transparency, 2 airports paused vendor contracts, a city passed an ordinance named Dignity at the Gate. Not perfect, but movement. That evening, Aunt Ruth set a hot dish on Naomi's table and snapped her wrist with a towel when paperwork crept near the plates. Not at the table. The Constitution can have leftovers. A week later, the big courtroom again. Not for a ruling, but a resignation. "I became a judge to serve justice," Naomi said. "Sometimes justice needs more than a gavel. It needs a blueprint." Effective at the end of this term, I will step down to lead the Center for Constitutional Practice, a nonpartisan place to train officers, judges, and communities in the practical mechanics of fairness. The Carter Standard is not a book on a shelf, it's a manual. She unhooked the robe. The sound was small. It felt huge. Work chased her out the door, a chief who wanted to get ahead of change, a nonprofit translating rights into savings, sheriffs practicing, I don't mind the mirror if I've shaved. 3 months became 6. The Carter Standard spread like a song you didn't know you knew. It didn't fix what a country can't admit, but it made liars work harder. It made honest people braver. In Phoenix, the dashboard went live, clean, readable, old spikes leveled, disparities narrowed, complaints ticked down. Actual contraband recoveries ticked up a hair, not because they hunted harder, but because they hunted smarter. Theo's kits traveled. College hoodies audited campus police. Gaps got fixed without protest. Sometimes sunlight is enough. A church coalition trained ushers as data captains. A retired teacher wrote in careful cursive, I feel less afraid in the line. Avery sent fieldwork photos, coffee rings, whiteboards, satchels of drives. A recruit's face mid-click, realizing where numbers had lied and where they told the truth. Caption, their first audit smile. Atlas Shield found a new lower floor. Sloan stepped down. The curriculum went through a shredder and a fire, came out changed. Instinct is not an element. Compliance looks like questions. Document before you decide. Keller served his time without incident. In a restorative circle, he learned to say, I did, not I felt threatened. Whether he changed or just learned performance, Naomi didn't wonder long. The system that made him deserved her hours. On a bright winter morning, Naomi returned to Terminal 4, not as a test, not as a symbol, just a traveler. A toddler dropped a stuffed giraffe. An officer bent, 2 hands. He looks like he's flown before. The mom's nervous laugh turned genuine. A bearded man peppered the officer with questions. He answered all of them, no put upon, a script that didn't sound like a script anymore. Any questions? The officer asked Naomi. Not today, she said, and meant it. Near the gate, a teenager whispered into his phone, Yo, this is the airport where that judge changed everything. The counter ticked, enough to remind a city that stories outlive courtrooms. Theo waited with a beat-up backpack. Congress wants your brain again. Kansas sheriff says the dashboard cut lawsuits in half, saved 2 cruisers' worth of budget. You ever get tired? Naomi asked. Every day, he smiled. Then I get mad enough to keep typing. Wheels up, Phoenix shrank to a circuit board, grids and glint. A machine choosing kindness. 30 minutes in, Naomi opened her laptop, started a speech, stopped, wrote a note for later, for the noisy days. The Carter Doctrine didn't invent new rights. It insisted the old ones be practiced. The miracle isn't the law, it's making institutions obey it. That's not drama, that's maintenance. Maintenance saves lives. Reagan National, an intern too skinny in a tie. Judge, sorry, sorry, Director. Naomi is fine. What's your name? Chase. Lead the way, Chase. On the Hill, short, useful meeting. A senator with more cows than people at home. I hate that I like this. Washington 4, I'll vote yes if you don't make me explain it. Back in Phoenix by nightfall, Naomi stopped at the center. Blue letters on glass. Rate sunk medium pitch, first. Center for Constitutional Practice. Whiteboards that had given up staying white. Officers arguing with public defenders, good-natured. A flight attendant wrote, de-escalation starts with tone. A grandmother with a hoop earring that read blessed poured coffee for a kid who ran data like a harp. Naomi stood in the doorway and didn't speak. Sometimes you look, so the moment can see you back. Avery spotted her, still telling a sergeant why random doesn't mean no pattern. "Boss," he said when he could, "you see the Phoenix numbers?" "I did," Naomi said. "Dip in secondary polls for black women, uptick in contraband because someone asked better questions." "We're getting there. We're getting there," she agreed. Night. Naomi added lines to language access. Offer questions in a traveler's first language when feasible. A real human on call, not a robot reading from a book. Disability accommodations. Quiet lanes for autistic travelers. Chain of custody, no more rotations. Call deletion what it is, or don't do it. Her phone buzzed. Jaden. "Professor said you changed the weather. That a thing?" "Weather changes every day," she wrote. "We changed the climate." The city wore night casually. Somewhere, a kid practiced scales. Somewhere, an officer practiced, "Sir, here's exactly why." Somewhere, a woman touched the plaque and read dignity like Braille for the heart. Naomi turned off the lights and took the long way home, past the courthouse. Not to haunt it, just to say goodnight. Home door stuck where it always did. Hip bump. Aunt Ruth's note on the counter. Microwave on 2 for the cobbler. Not 3. You'll ruin it. She obeyed. Ate standing up with a fork, unrepentant and human. She thought of the first morning, shots, glass, the change in the shape of her life. She thought of the officer today, how easy his voice landed. She thought how a rule becomes a habit becomes culture, and culture makes strangers feel like people again. A scrap on her monitor, read aloud to an empty kitchen because it sounds better that way. No badge converts fear into law. No uniform turns questions into threats. The Constitution is practical, treat it that way. Lights off, the garment bag by the door, a memory with a zipper. She touched it once, not goodbye, not apology, just a note. In Terminal 4, the night shift watched monitors. A toddler waved a stuffed giraffe at a camera, a young officer waved back. Nothing went viral, nothing needed to. The new ordinary doesn't trend. It lasts. And in the end, justice didn't roar. It whispered. In every line that moved a little fairer, in every officer who learned to see instead of fear. Naomi Carter's fight wasn't just hers, it became ours. If her story moved you, share it. Speak it. Let it remind the world that silence protects no one, and courage doesn't need permission to begin. Thank you for watching, and for believing that truth, spoken loud enough, can still change the room.